My name is Leon Shernoff, and I run Mushroom, the Journal of Wild Mushrooming, which is basically a popular science magazine for people who hunt wild mushrooms. So if you have friends who hunt morels, we're coming up to that season. You can get them a subscription. They'll be really happy. We're at mushroomthejournal.com. Anyway, and I also do some programming in various capacities. And I'm trying to build a fungal data system. Because right now, even when a data system for the physical features of mushrooms. Because right now, even when they put this data online, it looks like this. It's sort of free-form text, it's filled with jargon, it's long and it's complicated. And if you want to distinguish Ganoderma lucidum from something that's similar, the expectation is that someone is going to eyeball this and eyeball a few other descriptions of equal complexity and say, oh, yeah, it's this one, which is, it's pretty amazing that we have people who can do this, but it's really not, this is a pain point that technology can address. So right now, at the beginning of my project, I'm taking texts like these and turning them into JSON property value pairs and writing a code to compare sets of these descriptions as JSON and tell them apart. And eventually there will be nice interfaces for this. Now, so we're going to work with a text parsing program today, but it's going to be significantly less complex than the ones that I've been doing. So, but my own system is complex enough that just doing it at home, I really needed a methodology to handle what was going on. And this is what I came up with, and I kind of like it, so I thought I would share it out. So what we have for tonight is a... Can you make it bigger? Yes, I can. I made sure I know how to make all my text bigger for tonight. Is this good? Yeah. One more. Okay, good. So this is a program that looks at text, and I'm calling it a color finder. It looks at articles, here, and nouns, and it's expecting something between them might be a color. And so we have a bunch of utilities, and it asks the user whether this is a color or not. So we have a function here for is yes. So if we type a y, it tells us it's yes, it returns true. Just about anything else returns false. And our first text is this poem, The Red Wheelbarrow by William Carlos Williams. Some of you may have seen it in school. So much depends upon a red wheelbarrow glazed with rainwater beside the white chickens. So we've got two noun phrases with colors in here. We've got a red wheel, and we got the white chickens. And the articles are in our list of articles. And red is in our list of colors, but the other words are not. So it's going to have to infer them from the presence of other words that it knows. So we're setting our input text to be wheelbarrow. We're making it into a list, and we're running through this list. So this is the long, complicated main bit of code. And this is going to loop through the list of words that we just made here. And it's going to build local phrases each time it sees an a or a the, and it's going to try and make us a phrase with an article, a color, and a noun. And when they're finished, it's going to add them to our list of noun phrases. So we run this, and this is a nice thing about Jupyter. So you've got something running, you can go back up here and say, okay, it found a red, and now it wants to know if wheel is a noun, so it can finish off the phrase. And we will say yes. So it's got it's got the, and now we've got white chicken, so it's asking if white is a color. And these colors are grouped into types. So, oops. Red is one of the reds. Blue is one of the blues. Vermilion is also a red. Crimson is also a red. This app right now is very heavily skewed towards reds. And we've even got a function here to tell us if we have a red or not. Okay, so what kind of color is white? We're going to call it a bright color. And chickens is a noun. Yes. Whoops. Yes. Okay, so now we can evaluate our noun phrases for this text. We've got a red wheel and the white chickens. And if we look at our reference lists, we see that white has been added to the list of colors as brights, and wheel and chicken have been added to the list of nouns. So far so good. But this is all in one file. If we want to workshop other things, if we want to add things to it, we're going to have like extra complexity. It's going to get, hard to manage. So what can we do about that? And one of the things we can do about that is to take the routines that we know are working and export them to modules that we make. So I'm going to start with this isYes function. We're just going to copy it. Going over to Atom here. And we're going to call this, we're going to make a folder here called modules. And we're going to call this UI routines.py. And if anyone knows how to get rid of this, let me know afterwards. I've installed the thing it tells me to install, and it still does this every time.
Make the text bigger?
Yes. Okay? Okay. So now we have this isYes in an external file, so we don't have to clutter up our main program with it. Okay, so how do we access this? And let's see. Okay, I'm going to go back here and whoops. Oh, actually, okay. So we're going to use some system commands. Now, okay, system stuff, OS stuff. Stands for get current working directory. So it's the directory for this file. And So our module directory is going to be that, our current directory plus modules, the one we just created. And once this, we're appending this new directory to the path that this kernel of Python is using. Once we've done that, we can import routines from this directory, just like any other import statement that we make. So I'm gonna restart the kernel to make sure everything's all nice and clear. And now, if we do that, if we try to evaluate, is yes, why, we get a name error because this is not defined. But once we import the routine, it returns true. So now we can run through our thing just the way we did before. And we've once again loaded up, we've extracted the two noun phrases, so on. Now, once we have done this, we can do something else. Whoops. Which is, we can test this. So actually, let me just go right back to, so we can make a new file here, and we're going to run PyTest and do unit tests on this new module. So once you've exported these things, you can run tests on them. I wonder if it'll give me the, so this has the same name, the file has the same name as the file we're testing, but we still have to tell it to import stuff. And now you make a function and this is very simple for this particular function. Whoops. Sometimes you have to do some figuring stuff out inside these test functions, and we can also, well, let's just leave it here for now. And now we can run PyTest in this directory. So if we change our directory to this directory, modules, copy this. Windows terminal is this weird thing where they sort of want to pretend they're a real terminal where you can't do anything like just pasting, but then they also let you right-click on the bar and paste things. So we're changing to this directory, and we can just run PyTest, and it will look at these things. We have one test, we passed in half, so yay. So now, thank you for the applause, but this isn't really terribly exciting. So what we can do, also, you can run PyTest with flags. So you can get it to tell you how much coverage you have. And So now we have some statistics. And so the test routine, which is on top here, you know, everything ran. This went all great. But the UI routine, there's a miss. So we only get 83%. We're running 89%. OK, so there's a bunch of these flags you can run. And if you're running them directly on the command line, you have to type them all in, which is very tedious, and you can make mistakes. So what we are going to do is include a ini file for the PyTest. Copy here. And I just want to show you what this looks like. Basically, it's a big pile of command line flags. So PyTest, here's your flags. The COV is that coverage thing. It tells you which routine to cover. You want to report if there's anything missing. There's Flake 8, which is a style guide. And you'll see it's very picky and obnoxious. And the last thing tells you to generate an HTML report. So so now we don't need to type any flags at all in the PyTest. We just type PyTest. And it incorporates all those flags. Flake 8 flags all sorts of things. So between procedures, it expects 2 blank lines, but it only found 1. So it is, I'm not sure where that is. Wait. Hang on. Oh. Okay, I don't know where that is. But, and like we won't bother with this really right now, but what it does also that's very helpful is it generates this HTML coverage directory which has a web display of what it found. So this is a lot easier to look at. This is the original routine. This is the original file. And we can click on here and it'll show us what's missing. Okay, so we have coverage of finding this file, of finding this routine. We covered the yes branch of it, but we didn't cover the no branch of it. So we're going to go back to our test file, and we're going to write another test. No. Assert not. Whoops. Not is yes. And we'll put an N here. And we'll save it. And we will run PyTest again. Whoops, that's our test. And what does it do? So Flake is being picky again, but this time, if we go back and we've got 100% coverage now, and the red line down here is gone because now we're covering the false branch of our routine. So this is the basic workflow. You workshop things in Jupyter Notebook, which, as you saw, you can go back and forth. It's a great sandbox. When you got something working, you take it out and you put it in a separate file. You add a reference to that file. Whoops. You add a reference to that file in the main program, and then you've got your routine in a separate Python thing, and you can do your tests. And this way, you're taking stuff out of the main project gradually. You're adding tests gradually. It's a very workable way of doing things. So, home project. How are we doing on time? Because I have another. Okay. So let me do some more here. These are what's called unit tests. They test specific functions, and can I just plug this thing into the function and get the result I want? We have three different kinds of testing. We have unit testing, which we just saw. There's data integrity testing. So I might want, the way these colors are set up, each category has a color that's just that name. There's a red for reds, there's a blue for blues. I might want to loop through the colors and make sure that for each category there's a specific color with that name. That's one way of doing that. And then there's end-to-end testing, where you run the whole program or a certain section of it to make sure, everything still runs. Which is kind of what we just did when we ran through the thing again and got our results that we know about. So I'm just going to copy some other files, and so we sort of have, okay. So I'm just I'm taking some more of my routines out of the top here and putting them into separate files. So we now, let me find, I wrote this down, but my Kindle is not being so legible right now. Okay. So we're making an external table to handle data store interface. So we're loading our reference. These reference dictionaries here, we're going to put them, or we have put them, so now instead of loading those here, we have these here, and we've got a function here, get reference tables, and it just returns all of them with no parameters. So so that's this. And so a couple of things about this. We can just import, you can import all sorts of things from an external file. This, let's stop the kernel and restart it again. This line here, it loads all of this material. So this is going away from here. The is red is going away from here. This is going away from here. So right now, you know, wheelbarrow is undefined. Why is this still here? But if, did I delete the wrong thing? Ah. But I have, from the texts, we need to set the path. We need to import these things, and now we've imported that, and now we can set the input text to wheelbarrow just like it was before. So we've just, you know, it's a variable that is simply set over here in this external module, and we can just import the variable, which is something you do all the time without really thinking about it when you import a variety of modules. You know, they'll have a connection to a database that you can do, but they'll have a cursor, which is a kind of a variable. And actually it's a kind of an object. You can load classes like this. You can load anything that you can reference locally. And the other thing about this is, at this point, the main program doesn't know how you're getting the reference tables. It doesn't care. If you want to update this and make it more, you know, add functionality, have it connect to a database, and things like that, you can do it there. All this thing needs to know is that, you know, it's got this function to get the reference tables. And as long as you keep this interface looking the same way, it'll be perfectly happy. So we've got our is yes in here, our input text is wheelbarrow. We can do our whole thing just like we did before. So I want to try a couple other texts. Oh, and we now, input text is going to be Stormy. So this is our new text to parse. And the text routine is darker color. Sure. It's a dark color. Is and a noun? No. Stormy noun? No. Is night a noun? Yes. So we now have our noun phrases for this a dark night. It just leaves out the other words. And dark has been added to darks, and night has been added to our nouns. Now, if we do one more text here, we're going to do an Odyssey text. So this is a text from the Odyssey. Then the goddess, flashing-eyed Athena, answered him, "Therefore of a truth will I frankly tell thee all. I declare that I am Mentes, the son of wise Anchilaus, and I am lord over the oar-loving Taphians. And now I have put in here, as thou seest, with my ship and crew, while sailing over the wine-dark sea to men of strange speech, on my way to Temese for copper, and I bear with me shining iron." So we're going to make this into a list. And then we're going to parse it. So this is the beauty of using Greek texts. They immediately start asking you questions like, is goddess a color? And we're going to say no. Goddess is a noun. Is truth a color? How Greek? No. Is truth a noun? Yes, it is. Is sun a color? So how is it getting sun here? The sun of wise. So it wants to know if sun is a color, but it's just a noun. So this is a noun phrase with no color in between. It's a noun. So we're going to call or loving a color. I'm going to call it, wait. Yes. And I'm going to call it a green, just because it's late at night. And yes, Taphians are noun. Is wine dark a color? Yes. And now we have a dilemma, because like wine is kind of purple, but the sea is kind of blue. So like we might want to enter more than one color here. So for now, I'm just going to call it purple, and we're going to move on. Is shining a color? Sure. It's a bright color. Okay. So now if we look at this, our noun phrases for this selection are, there's a bunch where there's no color in between, but there's or loving, our new color, and wine dark. And shining iron, it had, I'm going to just scroll down a little. You see in nouns before, it had iron listed as a noun. So it saw the noun without, and it hadn't registered the word before it, so it asked, okay, is shining a color, because it comes before a noun. And we managed to snag this one. Now, let's just take a moment to update this so that we can enter more than one type for each color. So instead of, is this where we want to be? No, this isn't where we want to be in Atom. Okay, so we're going to make each of these dictionary entries a list. And we're going to have it take the input it gets and make that into a list. And well, we could leave oranges because we don't really care about it, but we'll just do this. Okay, we save this. Now, I've skipped past something I should have not done. Anyway, when we get what kind of a color, colors, we're going to split the color type. So I've let's, dang. Okay, we'll just color type split. Now, let's run it again. Well, let's restart, because otherwise it's just going to have all this in there anyways, so it's not going to ask us. Okay. So, path, add the references, is yes works. We're importing the Odyssey, and okay. So, is goddess a color? We already know the answer is no. We know it's a noun. Is truth a color? No. Is truth a noun? Yes, it's a noun. Is sun a color? No. Sun a noun? It's a noun. Okay. Yeah. We're just about. Okay, or loving is going to be a color. It's going to be a green. Tefayans is a noun. And wine dark is yes. Oh, and we're going to put purple and blue and red. See a noun. Yes. Yes. We'll call shining a white and a bright color. Okay. And now we look for our noun phrases. This is what we expect. And now our shining belongs to 2 different groups. Wine dark belongs to 3 different groups. Now, in case you're wondering why we did all this, let's run PyTest. Because now, whoops. Okay, now we have a problem. Now we have a test that failed. And I erred in not showing it to you before. Because I'm testing is red, which is something we haven't used before. We're going to pretend it's legacy code. You know, we've never seen it before. It's in there. It's probably doing something that we don't know about. But we had this test. Assert is red is crimson. And now this fails because the function is looking for a string at the end of the dictionary instead of a list. So this is the real reason we test. It's not so much when we do these things and we work them out that it's not going to work. You know, we expect our tests when we first make them to work. But what the tests are really for is if we do something new, did we break something old? So now what we need to do is change this just a little bit. So if reds is in the list for these things. And now we can run PyTest. I'm just going to type it and okay. And now it works. Okay. We're back at 100% here. And that's it. So it's a workflow. It's also, you know, why we test, why we want to do this sort of thing. And it's a way to keep things manageable and keep track of what you're doing. So that's it.